Britain's railways are moving back under public control, having been privatised since the mid-1990s. But why should we care? Is it going to make any difference to our experience of the railway? And most importantly, will it get any better? We're going to answer the 10 biggest questions that people are asking right now. Number 1. What will rail nationalisation actually mean? Well, Labour won the election in 2024 on a promise to renationalise the railways. In practice, since Network Rail was already renationalised, this really meant the contracts with the private companies operating the trains coming to an end, and from the point that they did, the operations then being run by the public sector. The big difference, though, is that as a result, the government can reunite track and train in each region and run them as single integrated operations. By removing much of the spaghetti of contracts and agreements, it should make things more logical and bring down costs. 2. Did privatisation have any benefits? Yes, it did. When British Rail handed over things to the private companies in the 90s, the number of passenger journeys made each year on the whole railway was around 800 million. By the time that the pandemic hit in 2020, that had more than doubled to 1.7 billion on a railway network that was pretty much the same size. It came at a cost, though. The infrastructure business, Railtrack, got into financial difficulty early on, and they went bust, being replaced by Network Rail, who became fully state-owned again in 2014. And with more trains running on an increasingly congested network, things got a lot more complex. 3. So what went wrong with the railways? Well, there were growing problems caused by the complexities of the structure of the railway. But what really did for it was the pandemic. The train companies effectively went bust thanks to lockdowns that meant no one could travel, and the Department for Transport stepped in. Since 2020, the train companies, whilst mainly owned by private sector businesses, have had strict contracts with the government and pretty much been told what to do. 4. How long will it take to renationalise? Well, the government doesn't want to pay compensation to private companies for terminating their train operating contracts early. Plus, it's not sensible to renationalise everyone all at once, as that could lead to organisational chaos. So train companies will come back into the public sector in a phased manner, with the whole process expected to take around 3 years. 5. Will rail nationalisation save money? Well, the government believe it will save a minimum of £150 million in terms of not having to pay for the competitive tenders that are needed from time to time to find new private operators. But it is also expected that by bringing track and train together under a single management team, that will save significant money. 6. Will all the trains look the same? No. The government have said that each region will have a clear identity, such as South Western, the first train company to be renationalised, South Eastern, Northern, and so on. But they will operate under an umbrella brand called Great British Railways. However, the government have also said that to be allowed to use the Great British Railways brand, each train company, as it comes back into the public sector, must meet tough performance standards. This is designed to give passengers the confidence that such performance standards are being met. However, there is a risk that this could give rise to confusion. 7. Will it mean cheaper train tickets? Well, not necessarily, and certainly not at first. The government is determined to bring the total amount of subsidy it puts into the railway down. It's considerably higher now than it was before COVID. And since there are only two principal sources of money for the railway, fares and subsidy, fares can't come down materially if subsidy is also being targeted for reduction. 8. Will it make the trains run on time? Well, nationalisation is not a silver bullet for anything on its own, but the government does believe that by reuniting tracks and trains under a unified management team, the operation will become more logical and less complex, and the reliability of the trains will improve as a result. 9. Is everything being renationalised? No, not at all. Currently, the vast majority of trains are owned by finance companies who lease them to the train companies. It's not proposed to change that, as it keeps the capital cost of the trains away from the public sector borrowing requirement, something the Chancellor is very keen to ensure continues. Rail freight companies will be remaining in the private sector as well. They're one of the true success stories of rail privatisation. There are a number of so-called open access passenger train operators which are not run by a government franchise, and they will continue to be privately operated. The change doesn't affect Transport for Wales, the Railways to Scotland, or those operated under other models such as the Elizabeth Line, London Overground and Merseyrail. And finally, the supply chain to the railway sector is enormous, and none of that is proposed to come back into the public sector either. 10. Does everybody involved with the railways agree this is the right thing to do? Well, not in every detail, but there is general acceptance that the industry is too complex and needs to be simplified. Plus, there is almost unanimous agreement that the situation post COVID, where even minor decisions needed to be referred to civil servants in Whitehall, is no way to run a successful, growing railway. Great British Railways offers at least a chance that this centralisation will diminish, and rapidly. There's no guarantee that this will all work, but neither will retaining the status quo. It does deserve to be given a chance, even if there is still plenty of detail to be resolved.